Are we live? This is live. What's up,
Nice.
everybody? We are live. Back after a little hiatus. Same cute face on a brand new place over on YouTube from Instagram. This is Echo Means Business live, hanging out on a fun day Monday night after a fun day Sunday night, kind of. But here we are on a Monday, and I've got my friends, my fellow UAG crew here, and we're going to be chatting about equipment maintenance. For those of you who don't know me, I am Michael Bedell, owner of Bedell Property Management, located in Southeast Michigan. And I am one of Echo Means Business Council members here for 2023. And I'm joined by my fellow council member. I guess it'll really be this way. I don't know, I mean, whatever way you see it. Scott, cue yourself up here, brother. Tell everybody who you are.
Hey, I am Scott from Landscapes by Acme. Another UAG council member here, and just having a great day. It's been fun, rainy last couple hours up at our place. So, and then,
that's why I said it's kind of been like okay-ish. It's been kind of rainy for people in Scott and I's area. So, and Mark, you live in Michigan as well. So tell us how rainy your Monday was.
It was like really pouring cats and dogs at one moment, and then the next probably 30 minutes you could walk outside with no rain, and then just you couldn't predict whether or not to go outside and do anything or not today. So
for sure. And those who don't know yet, tell everybody who you are.
My name is Mark Thomas. I run the YouTube channel Mark Thomas Builder. So I am a licensed home builder, and the majority of my career I specialized in modular prefab homes, and then I also when that slowed down, I ran a lawn care business, and now I'm pretty involved in tool reviews, outdoor power equipment, and pretty much anything you see at Home Depot. I feel like I have an interest in it, so I'm in that store probably like 3 or 4 times a week.
Any chance we can get the Home Depot hot dogs back? Do you have any line
on once in a while, I've seen some on Saturdays when they have some special events. So that's the best I can offer you for right now.
Hey, that's headed in the right direction. Some hot dogs are always better than no hot dogs. Just saying.
Yep.
Just saying. Especially if it's a Home Depot hot dog. Mm-hmm. I even know, side note before we queue up Don here, people like in the musician community who like do not go to Home Depot because they're musicians. They typically aren't like big fix-it people. Will go to Home Depot on tour. Not anymore because they don't have them. But it used to be kind of like if you needed a quick lunch that was cheap and there's a Home Depot in like every town, boom, Home Depot hot dogs for everybody. So just saying, bring them back. Bring them back. Go ahead.
I was going to quick mention, actually, a professional musician did reach out to me looking for a tool review from Home Depot. They need a soldering iron for all the electronics in their like guitars or amps or something like that. So
sure,
that's one thing I'll just say, the little reason they might go into Home Depot.
Yeah, but I'll preface that for everyone by saying they probably shouldn't. I've met many a musician who totally thinks they're like a luthier or a professional equipment maintenance guy, and they're not so much like Don, who I'm going to queue up here in a second, who actually knows what they're doing and why they would do it, and they're going to return it better than that. I've seen I've had some of my friends try and do some soldering on my guitar. And it led to me sending it to someone who actually knew what they were doing to really fix it. So just saying, that's part 2 of that advice for that guy is like, maybe slow down and learn a little bit. Watch some YouTube videos before you go get this nice soldering iron. Otherwise, you're going to need to hunt somebody down who can undo what you just did, because otherwise then the guitar doesn't work at all. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just good advice. So someone who actually knows what they're doing is our friend Don from Canada. Tell us who you are and why you know what you're doing.
So, hey, everybody, Don with Stewart Lawn, going into my 8th year, kind of do mainly just lawn maintenance, lawn care, and snow removal. Started about 3 years ago, really getting into fixing my own equipment, and we'll obviously talk more about that kind of as we go on, but I honestly also kind of found it was kind of a profitable way to, or you could be profitable during some downtimes that you have as well. So it's just another add-on service that you can do um, as you're just getting through the season kind of thing. So I've been kind of tinkering with things, obviously since I started my business, but yeah, really gotten into it. Started a YouTube channel, kind of playing with things, and really enjoyed that. So yeah.
Cool, cool. Well, if you haven't figured it out, tonight's topic is equipment maintenance. And that's why I've got these guys on here, because they all know a thing or two about equipment maintenance. And as you can tell, it's a little bit of a diverse group. I think we've all kind of thrown out there, we've all cut some grass here and there over the years. But aside from that, I mean, you have Mark, who's a builder, right? And so, maybe a little bit different than what some of us do day to day. But in reality, doesn't mean that there's not like maintenance involved, or maintenance isn't important, because we all, even though they might be different, have tools of the trade. And hence why our friends at Echo thought it'd be important to chat about this tonight, because they're so appreciative. Everyone loves these great Echo products, but we do need to maintain them. Because they're great, but the only way to keep them great is to keep them great, right? You know what I'm saying? So do a little maintenance. So we're going to cue it up to Don, who, as he threw out there, is kind of gotten into tinkering over the years and realized that maybe there's some value in fixing his own equipment. Maybe there's some value in fixing other people's equipment. So Don, tell us all about that.
So basically, a couple things, I guess, to start with. I really got into it, honestly, through Facebook, kind of the community group that I'm in. Some people basically started posting saying that their mower was broken, or their snow blower wouldn't start when they pulled it out in the summer or the spring, or sorry, they pulled it out in the winter, it wouldn't start. It's kind of how I started getting into it, but we all obviously kind of work on our own equipment throughout the year anyways, like you said, tinkering with it kind of thing. But I found personally the cost of taking things to dealerships is just gotten astronomical. You're talking about a string trimmer or something like that. That's, an Echo string trimmer. I don't know what it is in the States, but up here you're talking, $400 probably for a 2620 kind of thing. You take it to the dealer or something like that, it's $120 an hour, and that's just for them to diagnose it. That's not parts, that's not fixing it, any of that kind of stuff. So I found obviously the cost of maintaining it and taking it in to get it fixed, and then also just the time that you're down. If you can, pull it out one night after the end of the day rather than have to take it to the dealer the next day, drop it off, they might not get it to it that day, so you're looking 2 to 3 days down the road in order to get it back. So, and as we all know, time is money. So that's kind of why I started to do it. There's a ton of value, obviously, in doing it that yourself. I think you also, if you start working on your own equipment, you also learn more about it, how to use it, how to take care of it better. I'm not still the greatest at that, and I think that's just because I can fix it. But at the same time, you learn what can go wrong with these pieces of equipment. So, yeah, I think that's kind of the priorities for me as to why I started to do it, and obviously the value thing is huge. Like when I first started out, if you get two guys and stuff like that, we had two or three kind of pieces of every piece of equipment that we had. You have two backpack blowers, two or three trimmers, you have three mowers or something like that when you're doing push mowers, because you can't afford to be down. But now I know that I can, I have a spare mower and that kind of thing, but it's not the same mower. It'll get me through that day if I need it to. But then that night, I know I can rip into it and tear into it. Like last week, my Toro 30-inch mower transmission went out, and I replaced it, an hour later, kind of thing. So if you get going and get good at that kind of stuff, you can save yourself a lot of money and time.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I've discovered over the years is like all the things that you said, but you said them in like 2 minutes, not 20 years. Kind of funny how that works, but
We talk
no,
quick in Canada.
Well, I appreciate you laying it out there, because you really hit home like so many good little points. Like as you were talking, I was just like, yep. No, that is very true, because there's so much necessity, and it's only gotten worse. As you talk about my gray hair, I've done this a while, And it used to be a lot easier to get stuff fixed, and now it's whether a lot of the dealers want to admit it or not, like they're having a tough time finding people to fix this stuff. And so it certainly does behoove you to either learn some stuff yourself, or get somebody in your community like Don here who knows how to do some stuff and can maybe get you on a quicker turnaround, because downtime is just brutal. It's what ruins everything. You got anything to add to that, Scott?
Can I just one quick second, Scott, if you don't
sure,
mind.
go ahead.
I was just going to quickly just say, I think the biggest thing too is that with you're looking at $100 an hour to fix a trimmer or something like that. You really get to the point of, why am I even fixing this thing? If you've had it for a year and a half, 2 years, by the time it actually does start to have issues, it does get to that point where you might as well just buy a new mower rather than putting $250, or sorry, trimmer in this case, $200 into a trimmer. Like, why? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And I think that's the way it is for a lot of things. Whereas if you can, buy the part through your dealer, still support your dealers. I'm not saying don't support your dealers, but maybe you're just buying a part from them, rather, a $25 part rather than a $25 part and a diagnostic fee and a labor fee kind of thing. So anyways, sorry, Scott.
Yeah.
No, you're fine. No, you're totally fine, Don. I agree with you totally. I think that's why I started working on my pieces of equipment years ago, is just because the rise in cost of, their labor to actually work on something. And it was kind of getting to the point where it's easier to have spare equipment. We have a bunch of spare parts to be able to take and switch over to different pieces of equipment as we need. And, you can have a spare mower, but if you got the time and you know how to do it, it's a lot easier to fix it yourself and know that you're going to get it done when you need it done, and be able to get back out on that job right away, instead of, waiting 2-3 hours, or, a couple hours a day, or 2 days, 3 days, and waiting to get back into the job site. So, definitely knowing what you're doing on it, it helps out in the long run. So, yeah.
Yeah. And in reality, like, at least from my experience, our dealer Weingarts, they hold once a year in the early spring. They get everybody together and serve us like a steak lunch, and some mashed potatoes and a piece of cake, and then give away a bunch of free stuff. And the point of having us all in is they have like 10, 15, 20% off all the parts. And it's not like so then you can have us do the labor type thing. They're there for you to drop stuff off and get things fixed, but really the whole point of it is so that guys can come down, or gals, whoever wants to do this, anybody, that you can get all the parts that you need, all your blades, oil filters, fuel filters, belts, on and on and on, trimmer line. And the more you buy, the more discount you get. And because, they're always there and they're happy to fix the stuff, but they know realistically, based on the volume of stuff they sell, if we all had to come back to them because we broke all our stuff all the time, they'd never be able to fix it all. And so the win-win solution is to make sure that, we have the parts, and, kind of encouraging us that, like, we can fix the hard stuff, fix the easy stuff too, but like, you could fix the easy stuff, and we'll give you a deal on the parts. And that way you have them at your shop, you have them in the trailer if you need them, and you can just get to work fixing your stuff so you can get to work making money. And it creates this win-win situation where everyone's kind of set up for the year, hopefully. And I think it's a great thing that they started, and it's exactly the points you guys are both hitting home so far, that there's a big W if you can, take the time to learn how to do some of this stuff, even just one little thing at a time. Because, before I turn it over to Mark here and get some input from him, as I was saying, I was really taking in what Don's saying, because as much as I tried to get myself set up for the year, this spring has been like really like getting blasted in the face with a fire hose in terms of work, and it's very difficult to even find any time to do maintenance. And if anything, there's why the other argument why sometimes you need a couple of things, because sometimes, you know, when life's coming in hot, you just got to put something in the corner of the shop and grab what's next to it and get back out there and get to work, and, you know, hopefully come up with a rainy day like we've had today to fix some things and, you know, get our stuff together, as they say. So, Mark, do you have any thoughts that you want to add to that? And then we'll we'll maybe go through a few comments in the chat here. I see a good question about some mower questions. So maybe we'll even have you dive into those as well.
Okay. Well, you know, as we're talking, my brain's kind of spinning, thinking of different scenarios and things where in the past, when I was running a full-time job and also doing lawn care on the side with as many clients as I could have just to fit in. And at that time, I probably wasn't quite as handy with the mechanical stuff. Maybe there wasn't as much on YouTube at the moment, like showing how to fix all these different mowers. And I recall one time having a pretty big thing happen to me, and the dealer couldn't fix it for about probably 4 or 5 days, maybe a week. And just that was something that I couldn't stand to. I mean, that just wouldn't work for me. So the dealer, I didn't realize that they did this, but some dealers offer demo units to borrow. And I know Weingart's has some kind of a program. I'm not that familiar with it, but there's something you can pay a certain fee for the year, if I'm not mistaken. And then if your equipment breaks down.
Yeah, the first year if they get it, like if you buy a mower, it just comes with it. It's like their Smart Mow program or something. And then you can buy it as like an insurance policy where basically if you bring in the mower and they can't get it back out to you in like a couple hours or like 4 hours or less or something like that, they will give you a loaner mower at no cost because you bought into this program. So maybe there's a little bit of cost, but whatever, right? Still the cost ends up being typically pretty minimal because like at most you're down a half day and then you have a piece of equipment for however long you need it, you know, the rest of the day, the rest of the week, the rest of the month, however long they need your machine to get it fixed, you can use that rental machine and then you just swap them out when your machine's fixed. Okay.
Yeah, the dealer that I bought my mower from, I had a Skag Turf Tiger, and it worked really well up until I probably got up to about probably 800 hours on it. And then the first time it broke, they gave me a really nice demo unit that I was kind of thinking about buying. That was very enticing. And after I was done with that, probably I think it was the next year, it broke down. They gave me kind of a beat up demo unit, and I was mowing this 5-acre property, and I was on the far end of the property, and the demo unit broke on me. So, at that time, I probably started getting better tools and more knowledge. I was able to fix it and to keep mowing with it, but it's helpful to have some tools and just some experience. There's some things now that I probably would have tried fixing versus bringing it in. So, but that dealer's not around anymore. They went out of business, but that was just kind of the luck of the draw that they just happened to have a demo in the middle of the summer when I needed it.
Yeah. Especially if that's not like really so much like they're relied upon business model, or at least a pillar of it. That is pretty convenient that they had something for you to use, even though that new one sounds like a sales pitch a little bit.
Yeah,
like, sure, go use the new one, you'll buy it.
It was nice. I didn't want to turn it back in.
I bet. Yeah. I've been in those situations myself where I think even once I had to say the line, so how much to not turn this back to you? what do I need to give you just to keep this? Let's be real here, right? Yep. So
that's very enticing.
Yeah, cool. Go ahead.
I have another topic. Probably if we go through some of the comments, I know we have some different talking points, so maybe in a little bit I have some things to talk about with. I'm pretty sure anybody that runs a lawn care business probably has a trailer that they haul. So I have some talking points on that I'd like to get to in a little bit. But first,
cool. Well, let's rip through the chat here a little bit and see if there's anything fun to talk about, or at least at a minimum, there'll be a bunch of people to say hey to, because I see some of our good friends here, and then we can cycle back through that, because I know we have a few more things we want to chat about before we go have the rest of our fun day Monday night. Because maybe it's not raining where you are, and maybe it doesn't look like it's raining where Don is, nor does it
Beautiful
look
day
like
here.
it's on fire. So that's also impressive.
It's a plus for Canada.
I mean, I don't know. The other month, it seemed like all I heard was in Canada is on fire, like all of it. Didn't know snow could be on fire. I was actually pretty impressed.
I was glancing through the comments. First, wanted to say hi to Jeremy, and then the other one I noticed, because I had that Skag Turf Tiger for a long time and it started to burn oil. I've had some pretty good luck with Seafoam. I constantly would add that into my fuel. That seemed to help just the power of it and run better. It just seemed like it would, when I wasn't using it, I was mowing some really thick grass at the time, that it would just, the engine didn't keep up quite as well. So that's just something that I've had a little bit of luck with.
100%, 100%. From my experience with that, and then I'll turn it over to John. Older machines, you got to be a little more sensitive about what specific oil you're putting in it, and maybe like the thinner the better. And I've ran into that issue on one of mine where I was running, I want to say like a thicker 10W40 that was custom made for the machine, but now it's a little older. It actually runs better with the straight 30 weight. And so consider that. And I also run Hot Shot Secrets oil something or other. It's supposed to be like a oil lubricant or whatever. They threw it in when we did a little work together, and I had a whole bunch of their diesel product back when I had a bunch of diesel trucks, and they were nice enough to throw this big bottle in, and it's just like a little cap full. That's all you need. So I feel like it's may even be a lifetime supply for me, but something like that will help. But the other thing is older machines are just going to burn oil. And so now you just got to check on it every once in a while and keep topping it off, because that's also just kind of a thing that older engines do, and then some engines just do in general. Even on cars, some new cars just burn oil. What else do you guys got to say about that?
I was just going to say, I do think you should try to figure out why it is burning oil. I do think you're right. There are certain machines that do burn more oil and that kind of thing, but there is a core reason that it is burning oil. So I think getting to that is a good starting point as well, rather than just trying to fix the issue by adding something to the oil. Is get to the core problem. But
good point. It could be something. It's probably not, because Craig knows what he's doing, right? Because we all know who asked this question. So
it's coming in hot with the tough questions.
Yeah, but in reality, if it were somebody else, I'd say make sure you have the oil filter tight. Maybe it's not burning oil, maybe it's just kind of
just leaking out,
dripping out a little bit.
Yeah.
I think there's another good question there on the commercial or residential mowers. Scott, why don't you hammer that one?
Residential and commercial mowers, there's not too much difference. It's just I'd say it's more the motor. But a lot of times the motor, there's different types of motor, and you can always upgrade the motor if you want to keep up that mower. We've done it before in our shop, where we've taken residential mower and we'll use it for, a lot, on a daily basis. And then we'll go ahead and change the motors out after about a year, once we get up over 500 hours. And, it's not recommended that you change the motor at 500 hours, but you can always put a bigger commercial motor on it, and it would still run just as good as brand new, and you'll have pretty much a commercial mower. A lot of times the commercial and the residential are just, differences in the thickness of the decks and, the oil and the engine and the hydraulics. That's about it, and weight wise. And so literally both work really great on lawns. We use a lot of residential for our properties. We do have some commercial mowers that we use for the bigger properties, but whatever you got works out best for you. That's what you want to stick with. That's what I look at. So, keep with whatever you can have. So yeah, Kawasaki motors are pretty good. There's Kohler engines. You know, there's Honda engines. There's all kinds of engines out there that are perfect. It depends on what you like and what, you know, you're comfortable with using. That's what I look at. You know, I
Yeah,
have pretty much all kinds of them. So
oil, like, I mean, it's what the manual would say, but Don,
Right.
correct me, beyond that, like sometimes it references in the manual, like based on the conditions you're using it in. Like if it's, you know, Don's up in what, Calgary? Am I right in saying that?
Yep, you're right.
And
Yep.
so
Said it
like,
right, even. Good call.
yeah, I'm pretty sure, like, doesn't it start snowing right about the start of NHL hockey season and continue until about like last week for you? And so,
Yeah, so a couple.
so like
Thanks
in
on
turn,
that.
you need this like different oil than like us in Michigan, where we have a subtropical climate where we actually have like spring, summer, and fall for like more than a day.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely check the manual. I think that's key. The manual will say a lot of the time for different operating temperatures, kind of the baseline kind of thing. So check that. Every single different piece of equipment, every manufacturer will say to use a different type of oil, usually their oil. I'd stick with that personally. It also then you get warranty coverage if that's an issue. So I think that's important if you're, especially if you're buying brand new, in order to maintain that warranty. They won't warranty it a lot of the time if you aren't using their oil kind of thing. So I think the other thing I was just going to add on the commercial versus residential mowers, 100%. I do push mowers. That's strictly what we do. So we use 30-inch mowers. The biggest thing I find is the deck, like Scott said. So obviously the thickness, the weight, it's a heavier duty. I find the commercial ones can be even harder to move around kind of thing, but they will last longer. The other big difference that I find, and I've been going back and forth with a 21-inch commercial and my 30-inch Toro Time Master, I find the biggest difference is the gas tank size, and it kills me to use a residential mower some days because I'm filling it up, you know, 3, 4 times a day, whereas that 21-inch commercial, I can run it all day long and I don't even need to fill it up. So just another tip there. It might save you some time out in the field if you're not going back doing the long walk from that property all the way back around to the front of the house to get the gas tank because you forgot to fill it up.
the walk
Yeah.
of shame.
Yeah, literally. The,
Right.
the lawn
Been
care
there.
version of the walk of shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I
that's-
can make it. You feel like you can
No.
make it. Like I'm going to finish it, then I'll fill up. But no, you know, when we were talking about oil, this was something that I didn't really know that much about. I have a snowblower. It's fuel injected, gas powered, and I was wondering about changing the oil for the first time. And I was talking to a dealer, a friend of mine, and he said, "Have you ever tried AMSOIL? It has." He said this is what he recommended was getting that. I think it's a full synthetic, and he said the one thing is their oil has a lot of zinc in it, and he said small engines love zinc. So I haven't really studied that too much to see like how much, like what percentage of different brands is it already in there? Do they just put a little bit more? Do they put a lot more? But that's something I never forgot. So I have been using his
That's
advice.
interesting.
Yeah, I've used his advice, and it's so far, you know, worked well for me. So
I actually tried the AMSOIL, the two-stroke mix, and it terrified me though because you're supposed to mix it like 100 or 150 to 1 or something like that, and I couldn't do it. Like I just scared me too much to put in that little bit of oil. So I never really fully tested it. I should throw it in something in a different piece of equipment that you know, that I'm not using every day and see if it'll work. But it's that's always terrified me to use AMSOIL. But I have heard really good things about it, and I definitely try it out for sure.
Yeah, I've heard it's almost as good as the Red Armor. Just saying, from Echo.
Just saying.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. You know.
Honestly, that would be a good question for the Echo team though, because obviously they've done a ton of research. We've talked to them about that, the Red Armor, and the question about the zinc content. I would be super interested to hear about that actually, Mark. That's a good point. So.
yeah. So I just want to clarify that's for a 4-stroke engine that they're talking about the motor oil. So probably like a
Okay.
5W. I forget what that was. 5W20.
5W50, I think. That's what he was saying.
30. Yeah, it's actually in the Cub Cadet. One of their engines
Oh, cool.
is what where the dealer is from. So that's where I heard that advice. It's a lot more expensive or very pricey. So
Cool. Well, real quick, wanted to say hey to Extensive Gardens, Vince the Longineer, who wanted to remind you that you need to smash that like button. Hit it, smash it, mow it, weed whip it, do whatever you're doing, do it to the like button. Scott is famous now, but we already knew that. He's always been famous. Tino says what it is. Ricky says, hey, it's always a good day when the two guys from AJ's are in the house. Scott's here twice, so, it's a Monday, so anything's possible. Ricky says, let's go. I agree. Let's go. We have Jeremy says, hey, Mark Thomas. He's been hitting us with those great questions. We do love that. The Longineer says, the HD in my old town still has the hot dogs. Vince, you let me know where that is, buddy.
Yeah.
Because they have none of them around here, and it really bums me out. Blacktop Tech Talk. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to you. Thank you for joining us. We got Melanie, friend of the show, in the house. Got already chatted with Craig, and then we have Mr. Plemons. Richie himself says, "What is up, fellas?" And that he has got a little wagon. I don't even know what that's a reference to, but he wanted to let us know that he has a little wagon. Melanie says it's raining. Dealer suggested 5W50. Do you guys think that's too thick? Going back to that, circling back, winding back to that engine question about like it had 1,100 hours on it and it's burning some oil. The dealer suggested 5W50. Do you guys think that is too thick? What do you guys think?
I've never used 5W50 on any piece of equipment, so it would be, I would think it might be a little bit thicker than the 10W30.
Don, what say you?
Honestly, I don't have a ton of experience with ride-on mowers. I live in a big city in Canada, so I don't really use a lot of ride-on mowers. I honestly don't have a lot of experience with that, but it does sound to be pretty thick for what you're trying to do. But if the dealer suggested it, I'd probably do it. But
I'm on a X-Mark once in a while, and that sounds like it's closer to what I put in for the hydraulic fluid, the oil, the 5W50.
It's exactly what I was about to say, Mark, is like, I feel like I've put that, something about that. In fact, the second commercial mower I ever got was an old X-Mark Viking 36-inch, and I still have it. And that's like probably one of the only machines that like I've done like all the stuff on myself. And I've like before Xmark made their own proprietary anything, they used to recommend, I want to say it's Mobile 5W50, and I had to like top it off, and you can't get a little bottle, so you have to get the like quart or whatever it is, just for the little splash I needed. And so I still think on like I have a shelf that has like oils and what have you on it, and I'm pretty sure that's exactly the hydraulic oil. So I totally agree, Mark. That's what that sounds like. I would think, based on my experience from chatting with mechanics who deal with mowers all day long, they've mentioned that like thinner is better versus thicker, because when the mower is under load, especially if you're cutting like thicker grass, you don't want, as someone said, you get like double tension. Like the deck is going to be, or the belt on the deck is going to be under like extra tension because you have the resistance of the thick grass. And so that's going to be on the pulley on the engine. So that's going to be providing an extra load. And then if you have the oil that's thicker than maybe recommended, providing load on the other side, best case scenario, as it was said to me, you're going to reduce the lifespan of the engine and the machine in general. You're going to wear out the other components, but specifically the engine. Worst case scenario, you're going to like, if you put it under too much load, something will break. It's like any other, test of something you can see on like the Discovery Channel where they put things under load. Like eventually everything has a breaking point, and it's I mean, those blades are moving all fast, and the belts spin it like that. I can't even fathom how to calculate what that load is, but it's a lot. It's a lot more than like my couple 100-pound self could ever exert on anything. So that's my thoughts. That's what I've been told. But if that's what your dealer said and they want to put it in writing and have that as part of the warranty, I would take them up on that. So, does anybody know what kind of oil their Kawasaki engines use? Mine use straight 30 weight. Anybody else have a Kawasaki engine?
Yeah, ours uses straight 30. Kawasaki does have their own brand of oil also for their motors too. So, I mean, you can go with the Kawasaki brand or just straight 30. What we use.
I think it's 10W30. I have a 23 horse, I believe. 22 horse, 23. I thought it was 1030, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, that's interesting. And then Don, what about you? Do they have Kawasaki engines in Canada, or are those tariffed away or something like that?
No, I have one on my 21-inch Toro has a Kawasaki engine, and yeah, it's just a 10 weight.
10 weight. Okay, cool. That's interesting though. So maybe it's like the smaller engine. 'Cause you said it's 23 horse, both of you.
Yeah,
I believe so.
Yeah, mine's Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Versus, I want to say the Kawasaki on my 60-inch is a 29 horsepower. So maybe there's something like you go up the extra handful of horsepower and they recommend. Who knows? But that's what we all collectively learned. So we can go ahead and walk away and say we learned something today. Cool. Real quick before we dive back in, how often do you sharpen mower blades? Don, we'll start with you.
It really depends on how many yards you're cutting. If you're residential, I don't know, Jeremy, I assume you are residential, like kind of just your own grass. You could do it once a month if you really wanted to do it, but that's probably even overkill. I do mine about once a week typically, but that's just based on the number of yards I'm cutting kind of currently. So it depends how many yards you're cutting. So I know some guys, I'm sure some of you that are going, every day, you're probably doing it every 2 days, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
Probably.
no, yeah, that's I think there's a seasonality to it. When the grass is thicker, you're gonna wear through that sharpened edge faster, and so then there's also the like you said, how many lawns are you really mowing? I mean, back when we mowed over 100 lawns a week, it was fresh blades every day, no matter what. Versus now, it's like once a week, but there's I don't know, like a dozen-ish sites that I have to get cut every week, if that much. So it's not really that much mowing anymore, especially with the drought we've been in. Those blades just haven't managed to get very dull. What about you, Scott and Mark?
I sharpen them every day. We've been doing this for 20 some years, and it's just something that we started out, and that's something we do every day is just sharpen the blades up. We have actually, we mow 3 days a week, so we have 3 sets of blades. So literally we can switch out blades every day and have a, fresh set, and we sharpen them at the end of the week. And that's one of our daily routines is making sure the blades are nice and sharp. So
cool. What about you, Mark?
Yeah. I was just thinking I wanted to touch on a thought before I forget about it. So when I first started doing lawn care, there weren't as many good options for sharpening your blades as there are now, I believe. I was trying to, on the grinding wheel, trying to guide it myself and trying to eyeball it. And now I have the ultimate blade sharpener. And if any of you guys watch Project Farm, he did a video yesterday that's all about the different type of sharpeners and how they work. It's the real expensive ones, and using the angle grinder on the ultimate sharpener, that's something that you can really touch them up pretty fast. So when I was doing close to 20 lawns a week, and one of the lawns took me 2 hours, another lawn took me a couple lawns were like 1 hour. So there's a lot of hours on the mower, and I would probably sharpen them about once a week. I know I should have probably done it more, but that was something in the spring when you're hitting all the branches, in the fall when the leaves are falling, then I'd probably do it more often because those things are dulling up your blades faster too. And like you said, in the spring, the thicker grass. Right now, the grass is like yellow if there's no irrigation, and it just doesn't take much if you had to mow it, but it wouldn't do much to the blade.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. All right, so bonus question that's a +1 to that before we move on. How often do y'all balance your blades? Because it's one thing to sharpen a blade, but it's another thing to have a perfectly balanced blade before you put it on. And since this is an equipment maintenance conversation, let's get a little perfectionist here. And Don, how often do you balance your blades?
Rarely, if ever.
All right, Scott, what about you?
I find that
Uh,
I'm buying new ones so often anyways. I'll just go buy new ones, once a month or once every 2 months anyways. So
Okay.
I don't think for that, the amount I cut grass at least, it doesn't make that much of a difference. In my opinion, I'm not a professional, but
Gotcha. Scott, what do you say?
I'd say we balance them at least once a month. That's on a monthly basis of balancing them. But we do change out our blades halfway through the year, and put on brand new blades at the halfway point of the year. So I mean, it can make a big difference on your spindles and everything too if they're not balanced just perfectly. So then you're pretty much going back to replacing spindles. So I mean, that's something to keep an eye on too.
Sometimes I feel like the deck might be vibrating more, and if I notice that, then I'll balance them. I bought a couple years ago the Oregon blade balancer, the like $100 one,
Yep.
and that thing is so smooth. So a lot of times I'll just pop a blade on there just to see how they look, and if I notice like they're all like going one side or the other, then I'll take the time to balance them. It's kind of hit or miss, but mostly like, when you're noticing something might be out of whack a little bit.
Cool. Well, I'm glad I saved myself for last because I'm neurotic and do it every freaking time. Every time. Because I have that blade balancer that Mark just mentioned. And I freaking love that thing. And so like I just got if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. And I get that thing perfectly balanced. But it's that vibration. Once you're used to balanced blades, you can detect like vibration in the mower if you're kind of a nerd, I guess, like I am, and I can even kind of sometimes detect which side of the deck I think will end up out of balance. And sure enough, like I've made a game out of it for myself where I guess what it's gonna be, and then ultimately sometimes I'll even before I sharpen it, I'll throw it on the balancer to be like, oh, I knew it. Yes, this was out of balance, and then other triple +1 is you want to knock all the grass and debris off of the blade because that will influence the weight of the balancing process. Or take a balanced blade and throw it out of balance because it has the additional weight of like congealed grass on it. And then the last thing I'll mention is your blades do not necessarily come balanced from the factory. And I can prove that because I have a whole bunch of them that have never come balanced from the factory. I think I've only once or twice pulled the blade off and it's been balanced. But you got to sharpen it up anyway because they don't come that sharp out of the box either. And so the second you start sharpening, those one or two, boom, they're instantly out of balance. So I will get off my soapbox now. We'll move on to the next topic. But if you want to be a total lawn care badass, you need to sharpen your blades, knock all the stuff out of them, balance them, and you will have a crazy amount of long life out of your machines. And
I like to use that purple cleaner. I think it's called Super Clean, and I have a little tub, and I put some of that in there, let them soak for about 10 minutes, and then take a wire brush, and it just comes right off. Because
okay.
I get annoyed by that extra stuff on there trying to balance them, and that stuff really works well. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I've just done either the hand wire brush or I have a wire brush on a Dremel tool that'll just get that stuff right off of it. And yeah. I mean, I'm picky, and I guess there we go. Y'all learned. Y'all learned. Don't sharpen blades with me because it's going to turn into a whole event. But cool. All right, we've got some cool chat stuff in here that we'll have to get to in a minute. But let's dive into our next round of talking points. I know these guys had some more equipment maintenance related items they wanted to share with you before we shut this sucker down for the night. So Don, let's just circle back in the same little order here. Did you have anything that you wanted to dump into?
I think Mark had a couple things, and I was going to mention something after that. But...
Oh, cool. Well, then we'll run with that. I like that even better.
Okay. Well, a lot of people probably don't know. I did mention that a good majority of my career as a licensed home builder has been in the modular prefab home business. And part of that is manufactured homes. And in order to sell a manufactured home, you have to have a dealer's license. So in the family business, we had a dealer's license, and we would buy our homes from Indiana and from like the Elkhart, and that's where all the trailer dealers are too. And since I'm hauling trailer all the time, you're passing all these places. And we got hooked up with a friend of somebody in the business. His son worked for Hallmark. Then we started selling Hallmark trailers. Then I started selling some other brands. So I've had experience with a side hustle business for years with selling trailers. So I've tried all different ones, and I would a lot of times just have them for about a year, and then I would sell them as a demo unit. And the one thing I thought, when I'm getting a brand new trailer, you have brand new tires, and they have the nice thick tread on them. And I thought, well, I'm not going to get a spare tire at the moment. So there's been 3 times in my life that I've had a relatively new trailer, and I've been stuck because I'd use these trailers and we would go all over Michigan, and 3 times without a spare. And a lot of times it's like a trailer loaded down with material. Sometimes it's landscape products, sometimes it's a bunch of concrete blocks, a lot of times a bunch of lumber, and sometimes it's in the middle of nowhere because you're going, way up north, and there's not as many places around, resources to get your tire fixed. So that's the one thing I would say: spend that extra money if you have a trailer to get a spare. And maybe most people do, but that's just something that I've learned the hard way. And that's my first point. If you don't know how to fix a tire with the plug kits, that was something I didn't really learn until later on in life, how cool those things are. And they're very small, minimal price. And I probably could have got out a couple jams if I had that. So just making sure you have a 4-way tire iron, a jack kit somehow to get your tire off. And even if you have a tandem axle trailer, you might think, well, if one tire goes flat, you have the other one. That doesn't work. If you're loaded down with weight, you are out of luck. So that happened to me with a dump trailer one time, just loaded down. So it just completely ruined my day. So then when it comes to trailer stuff, I just recommend checking your tire pressure, because a lot of times they're up pretty high, like 50 psi, compared to some like typical tire pressures, and just checking that regularly. And then checking your hubs as well too, like once in a while when you're driving a distance, feel the hubs to see if they're getting hot. They'll probably be a little bit warm to the touch, but if they're getting hot, then you may have some bearings that are going bad, or you might need to add some grease. A lot of trailers have, like the brand like Dexter axles, they make the easy loop hub so you can grease it, or Bearing Buddies is another one. So just adding grease to it's really easy with a grease gun. So just keeping those topped off, and you kind of see where the spring is in the hub, where your grease amount is at. And then, like I mentioned, just touching them as well too. So
make sure you use the right grease, because I had a buddy who didn't use the right grease, and it meant a trip to the place that he got his trailer from to open it up, scrape all the grease out, and make sure it had the right grease in it. Because, and I wouldn't have even necessarily thought of that, but I got to live vicariously through his mistake, and it was much better than living through my own.
Yep. Yeah, if you're hauling boats, and that's like a different kind of grease too, because they're made to go in the water. So yeah, there's a lot of different types out there. And then I would say being prepared with, there's a lot of great options for inflators. So I don't know if anybody else has been stuck with a flat tire in their mower. And years ago, the one solution was to carry this big tank, like a Craftsman tank, and fill that with air. But what sometimes you can't fill it up enough with that one tank. So getting a good, like a battery powered compressor is something I highly recommend. So those are just some of my things I've come across with trailers, things I recommend based on experience.
Lived experiences with Mark Thomas. Things that he had to live through that he hopes that you don't have to.
Yeah. And then, yeah, if you're leaving your trailer loaded down with stuff in the middle of nowhere and you're driving, then you're just wondering, like, is anybody going to steal it? Or, so there's just so many different things that can go wrong that it's just worth that extra money. Even if your tires are in really good shape, nice and new, just get that spare.
Like to add to that? Or have you fared pretty well over the years and have decided to get spare tires?
No, I've always gone through a lot of spare tires. I'm always the one that, even I think it was last week, I blew a tire out, literally first stop, and luckily it was the mowing trailer and we're not totally fully loaded down. So we had to literally drop off a tire and go to the next stop. And we went pretty much most of the day without, one tire. But there's many times that, yeah, I think having the right tools with you, a jack, definitely, and keep an eye on them. I mean, that's something that we do monthly, is just to kind of go through and look at, the tires, make sure the threads are good. Make sure there's nothing rubbing against it, because, if you overweigh it, you're going to rub one way or the other. And, you got to check on all this stuff, because checking it, monthly and weekly is going to eventually help you down the long road. So, it can happen. So, but yeah, a lot of that stuff's happened to me. So
I was just going to say, it's pretty funny when you, we all follow each other on Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And there's usually at least one time a week that one of the UAG members has a tire that's blown out somewhere. So it happens to everyone. But it's like you guys said, it's just being prepared and having the equipment in order to fix it on the side of the road. So,
yeah, I feel like last year I saw a lot of Tino and Ricky having tire issues, and I admittedly spent a lot of time in Texas, but it made me realize that maybe they have bad roads like we have in Michigan too, because gosh, there are some roads here in Michigan that if you're not destroying your tires, how they're just so bad. Like, it doesn't matter whether they're new or not. It's a tire death trap. It probably keeps like the discount tires of the world in business. So
true.
I wonder if the hot heat that they have compared to Michigan, if that does something to the tires, like really rips them up more when they're that hot.
Huh. That's an excellent point. I there probably is something to that, and I never thought of that. That's We'll have to we will have to inquire with someone who knows, or just ask Tino and Ricky, because I know that I've a few other people I know who live in Texas. I had a client still is a rap artist who used to live in the area, and now he moved down to Houston. And I saw him post some like crazy heat warning the other day, and I was like, I wonder how he's like in Texas. he was a guy who liked to hang out in his basement and play video games all the time. So hopefully he has a nice, cool basement somewhere in Texas to do that, because I don't know. So it gets hot here in Michigan is like 80 or 90. Apparently hot there is 100 something, which I don't even think we go outside here when it's like 100 something. It's just dangerous. And does it even get I don't know what it is in Celsius, but does it get 100 degrees Fahrenheit ever in Calgary? Like, has that ever
Yeah, it's probably happened, but it's pretty rare. Like, Calgary is basically like the equivalent of kind of Denver. Like, we're about 45 minutes to an hour from the mountains, so we do get some pretty warm weather, but it cools down at nighttime just because of the mountains. So we're lucky with that. But
yeah, I have friends in Denver, and it can be like 80 degrees during the day and then like 28 in a snowstorm at night. It's pretty wild. Pretty wild. And we in Michigan think we have bipolar weather. We don't know nothing. All right, Don, you got something to add here.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think one of the biggest things talking equipment maintenance, and it's the number one thing that I always see when people are bringing their equipment, is carburetor issues. In general, at least here, I know you guys like to make fun of me because I'm from Canada and it's cold, but the biggest thing for me is wintertime when people bring snowblowers and they won't start, and it's summertime when the mower's sat for 7 months or 6 months, and it won't start in the spring. So the biggest thing is either winterizing your equipment and how you do that kind of thing. So obviously there's a ton of great options. I know, Mark, we discussed this before. You've done a couple of videos on kind of how to winterize your equipment kind of thing, but I've honestly made a bunch of money on either buying equipment that people either put at an auction that won't run or just on Facebook Marketplace. And I can guarantee you that 90 to 95% of the time, you either just put fresh gas in it, get the old gas out, dump it out, or run some, sea foam or carb cleaner kind of through the carburetor. 90 to 95% of the time, that's the issue. So when that stuff sits, all winter kind of thing or all summer for snow blowers, like the jets and those emulsion tubes and the holes are so tiny that any bit of debris will just block it and it won't run well. So a couple tips, I guess, to see if that is the issue. If you do have a lawnmower, if it won't start for you kind of thing, put a little carb cleaner, put a little starter fluid kind of thing in the engine, whether through the air filter or through the spark plug hole. If it starts and it runs for 1 minute kind of thing and it dies, or 10 seconds kind of thing, that it's a carb related issue. And if that's the case, it's a $30, $35 fix for a carburetor. So if it doesn't start at that point, then you have other issues, whether it's spark or whether it's something else. But I would say 90 to 95% of the equipment I get is carb related, and it's because of the gas sitting all winter. I know it's different in the States. You can get ethanol free gas and that kind of thing in some places.
Mm-hmm.
In Canada, as of 2022, you're not allowed. They have to have a minimum of 10% ethanol or 10% ethanol in our fuel. So you can't even buy it unless you're buying, the cans of I can't remember the name right now, but you guys know what I mean. The True Fuel,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's just a quick tip on carbs. It's amazing how many of them that come, and it's just a carb related issue whether it needs to be cleaned out. And that comes for mowers. That's for 2-stroke engines as well. Obviously a little different with mixed gas with fuel, but just a couple quick tips there.
Yeah, and of
Hey, Don,
course, our friends at Echo would love to remind you that the best way to stabilize your ethanol-free fuel is, of course, using Red Armor Fuel Stabilizer, available on Amazon. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I want to actually ask Don a question. I have an older Honda snowblower that's sat for a while, that for a couple of seasons I haven't used it. It wouldn't start. So if you had one come into you, since you have a lot of experience with it, how difficult is like replacing the carburetor if that's the problem? How
Honestly,
long does something take you to fix something
usually
like that?
I can get it done in probably about 20 minutes now, like depending on. Snowblowers can be a little more difficult just on how to get to them. Obviously, there's a lot with the ignition and the key and that kind of thing. But a lot of the times, what I would recommend, and obviously I know you're a handy guy, is just pull the carb bowl. You can usually get access to that without pulling anything else off of it. But if you can get that carb bowl off and take a look at it, you can tell within 2 seconds as to whether or not you need to pull the carb off completely, kind of thing. I'll usually try to cheat a little bit and just pull the carb bowl off and see how it looks, kind of thing. Also, a lot of the time, if you can get it started and running, whether that's using, a starter fluid or something like that through the spark plug hole, once you get them running, they can usually clean themselves out a bit too. It gets that debris kind of moving around kind of thing. So definitely empty the old gas out if there is any in it and go from there. So personally, I know there are fuel stabilizers that you use and that kind of thing. I don't know how effective that would be here just because of the ethanol in the gas. I recommend that people just drain them completely. I'd rather have no fuel in the carb bowl because that's what happens is it sits in that carb bowl, and I can show you guys pictures of some of the carb bowls and it looks absolutely disgusting. Like it looks like there's slime in the side of the carb bowl and people wonder why it doesn't start. But
Didn't you put one of those in vinegar and it froze once?
I did. I did, yeah. I was trying some different kind of cleaners and that kind of thing, and I just wanted to see what would happen. But yeah, vinegar does freeze. Just an FYI.
It's rough in September in Calgary. It's coming up fast.
Right.
No, that was like January, wasn't it?
Yeah, it gets down to, minus 40 here Celsius at times, which is minus 40 for you guys Fahrenheit. So it gets chilly.
Yikes. Scott, what are you gonna say?
I think using cleaners helps out a lot of times. Using kind of like a fuel stabilizer during the winter, we kind of use a fuel stabilizer from Stable, and I mean we can start the mowers right up in the beginning of the spring and have no problem with them. We leave a little bit of gas in them. I know it's different where you guys are, but I mean we still get pretty cold during the winter, and I think it depends on where you store it too. We try to keep our shop a little bit of warm, so that way it's not, freezing cold. I think, if you got it in a place that's totally frozen during the winter, it's going to be a big difference.
Yeah,
So
and my mowers sit in cold storage, but we get a thaw here, every handful of weeks, and on that 40, 50 degree day, I pull all the equipment out and let it run for a little while, and I found that doing that a few times throughout the winter makes it so there's not really any issues firing anything up in the spring. And if there is an issue, like on one of our mowers, we actually had some sort of like, and it's an older mower, it had some sort of like valve issue or something, and it was just a component broke. And it was actually kind of nice to discover that in like February, when I could like nudge it into the trailer with the forklift and get it to the dealer. And they're slow because they're not like in the spring rush yet. And, there are advantages to kind of doing it that way per se, because you sometimes can find a little problem that was going to creep up in the spring anyway, but you catch it before the spring rush when you have that, oh crap moment.
No, for sure. And I think I see it. The snowblowers one usually happens more than even the lawnmowers, just because they actually sit for, even here, like you only have snowfalls that you want to use a snowblower, like, 3 or 4 times a year.
Oh,
Like,
really?
I'm sure even for you, Mark, like, well, it's just most of the time, it's early in the morning. You don't want to start up your snow as a residential individual. You don't want to start up a snowblower on, Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. before you leave for work. So you're going out there and you're shoveling it at kind of a bit yourself, right? Obviously for commercial guys, then you're obviously starting it up every time, because I don't want to shovel, 25 properties a day. But I think that's the biggest thing for individuals that own snowblowers is you don't start them up for, tiny little snowfalls. Like for most snowfalls here, if it's under, 2 inches, I use a backpack snowblower or backpack leaf blower.
Oh,
Because
okay.
it's a drier snow here because we're not near any big lakes like you guys are. So it's a dry powder snow, and I can be done a 2-car driveway in a minute and a half with a backpack leaf blower, rather than having to pull my Arian snowblower off the trailer or back of the truck kind of thing. So
I use my truck driving up and down. I have a 300-foot driveway, and we get a lot of drifting. If it's just like an inch or two and the sun's coming out that day, you drive up and down a few times with the bigger tires, and when the sun comes out, just for residential anyways,
yeah.
that works fine. But if it starts drifting, then yeah, I definitely get the snowblower out. I think in 2012, when we had that the polar vortex, at that time I had a 45-ish size horse farm tractor with a back blade, and I think I brought that out every single day for like probably the month of January and February. We had so much snow that year and so much drifting. It's actually the only time in all the years living here that I couldn't get the driveway clear at the end, and I called the neighbor that had a plow V front, and he got stuck. And then the next year he had this huge tractor set up, so now I'm ready for a polar vortex again. So
Yeah, that was a very memorable year. That was something else. I'll gladly not get that much snow ever again.
I think just quickly, I don't know if I fully answered Mark's question on the changing out the carb.
Yeah.
It's honestly like anyone can do it. It's easy to find. Go on YouTube. There's tons of people that'll show you. I type in type in the exact snowblower that you have, and I guarantee you there's a video up there. It's usually like 4 or 5, screws / bolts to pull off the cover, and then it's usually 2 bolts on your carb, and you just got to make sure you turn off the gas and pull the fuel line off, kind of thing. And but yeah, I just check the carb bowl first to see if that's the issue, because usually that's a telltale sign. And that's one bolt that's, usually like a 1/2 inch kind of socket on there, and you can pull it off and take a look and see.
Yeah. There's one other point I was thinking about before doing this live. I have a pressure washer that locked up on me, and I was watching a video by somebody else, and the person mentioned to make sure when you're running your pressure washer, turn your fuel valve off, let that all run out. And I was guilty of not doing that in the summer. And then it locked up enough where it's not like the typical where a pressure washer will lock up where it'll still pull a little bit. This one just completely was froze. And I was able to get it to turn, taking a few things off to get to turn. Somebody said using that Marvel Mystery Oil, pouring that in the spark plug, that seemed to help. But after going through all the problems, I'm finding that when you're putting stuff away, that I think my practice for this year is going to be, if it has a fuel valve on it, if it's like a wood splitter or something else, it has like a Honda engine or something, just turn that fuel valve off, let it run out.
I recommend that to everyone. And a lot of the time when I'm replacing carburetors, I'll put a fuel shutoff valve off on it before I reinstall the carb. A lot of residential mowers don't come with that, but I 100% correct. I think that's huge is to try to keep, like I talked about before, is trying to keep gas from sitting in that carb bowl for as long as possible.
Great advice. Very, 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 very good advice. Cool. You guys want to dive through the chat here, and then we'll see if there's anything else we want to talk about before we land the plane here tonight? Cool. All right. So let's see. JC, our buddy JC, the lawn care guy, thanks for joining us tonight, says he has to sharpen his blades every 2 weeks. The property he has are very weedy / rocky and not so level. A lot of debris. His lawns are the just mow it type. Anybody have any lawns like that? The three of you?
I'm kind of at the point now where I'm not doing as much of that, but I still have a couple clients that, it's just, you take your mower on there and it's going to get dinged up, and it's, you're going to get those rocks that fly up, and I find it worse in some of the areas where you have to, string trim kind of thing. I find that to be the worst, or those areas, but.
Good times. Mark, have any fun with that?
Actually, I was thinking most of the clients when I had like up to 20, it was interesting. Almost like a good majority were doctors, and there's different income, and the lawns were a little more pristine. There was one doctor that had a property that had all these trees, and we couldn't figure out how to get like the lawn to grow underneath. And I'm like, well, I think it just needs more sunshine, but they didn't want to thin the trees out at all. So they probably, if they could just get more sun in there, maybe it would have grown. But we tried planting some shade mix and stuff and didn't have much luck. So that was the most beat up one, is one that just had basically no lawn. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, do I just keep going straight over like the bare dirt or do I go around it? Do I leave it? Because there's a few like straggler weeds, here and there. So that was,
those are not fun. Those are not fun because it's not hard to make look good. Like it says stragglers where you go over them and sometimes they don't even get cut because the decks aren't really designed to just like snag stragglers. They're designed to cut turf. So, all right. Cut and Plow is here. Thanks for joining us, Jeremiah. So happy that you joined us on this Monday night. And all right, Craig says suggestions on best place to purchase parts online. He is looking to replace the flex drive shaft and the muffler cover for his trimmer. His dealer doesn't stock it either, so he thought he'd purchase it online. Well, aside from our friends at Weingarts.com, do you guys have any suggestions?
I bought from Parts Tree. They have a lot of Echo parts on hand. There's a couple other places I know. Check eBay. Don would be pretty much the same with me on that. eBay. There's a lot of good places up there. Even if you can cross-reference your part number, just put the number in the Google and check for it. You might find some place that has it in stock online. So that's always good to look that way.
Yeah, I find I try Amazon. I know a lot of people hate Amazon. It is quick, obviously, and shipping up here is a huge part. Like if I'm going on, or what's that one, e-parts or equipment parts or parts tree, I've checked on those, and I'm paying, $60, $70 for shipping, and then, for a $20 part, it just doesn't make sense to me. So I am kind of bad at times for buying the Amazon ones, but in my case, it's almost a necessity. It's either there or the dealer is typically where I go. So.
And sometimes on Amazon, like I'm like 99% certain Weingarts sells stuff on Amazon. And
There definitely are some dealers that do that kind of thing. Yeah, for sure.
And so like there's a chance that like, you're going to Amazon, but if you look at who's actually like procuring this part
Seller.
and shipping it to you, it's the dealer, right? So
Right.
cool. Well, yeah, hopefully those are some useful suggestions because and I'm not sure they're around, but J. Thomas might still be an option. They're a company here out of Michigan that like I thought was just local to us, but like turns out they like back in the day more of like a catalog type business. I'm sure it's more online now. In fact, I recall I think they were purchased by some bigger entity, but retained their name. Yeah, it turns out they are not. I mean, they're in Michigan, but they're not so much a local company. I heard once like all the Michigan people addresses that purchase for them, we're like 2% of their sales or something like that. And a majority of their sales were everywhere. And I actually once ran into a guy who was up visiting family but was from Florida and was like, well, if I'm in town, I'll just buy the stuff here instead of paying the shipping. I'll throw it in the truck and drive it home. So it made me realize, like, dang, some guy in Florida buys stuff from these guys. And that was like, not to age myself, but maybe like 15 or 20 years ago. So yeah, I think J. Thomas might still be around, so that might also be a fun option because that's just it. There's lots of fun options. All right. Jeremy wonders how often we change mower blades. We already talked about that a little bit. JC, the lawn care guy, says he gets lazy sometimes when it comes to balancing. He used to be way better at it, but it's so time consuming. Oh man. JC, you're breaking my heart here. But I do understand, it's kind of a necessity thing too. Like, where are you at, where you're going, you're sharing, you cut these kind of like just mow it down. So like, do you really, other than for the longevity of the equipment, you may not be getting the bang for the buck on the balance. Paul Camara, thank you so much for joining us tonight. The legend himself. Always so great to have you in the house, and hopefully we'll have you on for another one of these in a month or two. So that's so great. What are your thoughts on fuel system cleaners for your mowers? Guys, any thoughts on that?
I think anything that I haven't used them a ton, like I said, just because of my case, but anything that helps clean out your system, the mower, the fuel system is going to be great. So I'd recommend using it for sure, especially if you're going to let it sit for a bit. I think anything like that is good.
Yeah, detergents aren't that bad of a thing every once in a while. Keeps it all scrubbed up. I remember years ago, and you guys can search it here on YouTube, there was some UAG members that did some video tests before and after of what it looked like inside of an engine and the wonders that Red Armor can do for cleaning up any of the carb deposits that are in any of the engines that you have. So, just one more reason to use Echo's fine line of Red Armor products. I can't mention it enough.
I've done the same thing. Honest, I did it just for fun to see, and it is amazing the difference. And I do like obviously the Red Armor, and even the difference between the Echo, the base model kind of version of the cleaner compared to the Red Armor, you can still see a difference there. So the detergent is great.
So the great line of products from our friends at Echo, and I'm happy to speak to it because it's what I use exclusively, not because they make me, but because I choose to. I've used other brands throughout the years, and at my point where I'm at in life, I'm just going to use what works, and their stuff works. So that was good enough for me, and hopefully it's good enough for you too. Consider buying. Friends at Echo.
So I have a question when it comes to talking about The two-stroke mix. So I read somewhere several years ago somebody talking about using another brand. This was right around the time the Red Armor came out, and they
Yeah.
said when they started using this other brand, they said it smelled like burnt waffles, which they said isn't like a big deal, but they said they would get a headache when they would use this particular product. And I was using that at the same time, and I ended up having a carburetor issue. And then when I joined the UAG, they gave us some samples of the Red Armor, and I was part of that challenge. I didn't go through all of it because I wasn't mowing enough lawns to do that challenge, but I have not had a carburetor issue since using that, and that's all I use now for my two-stroke equipment is the Red Armor, and 89 octane is what I mix it with.
Yep. Yeah, you hit the nail perfectly on the head there, Mark, which as a builder makes total sense. But yeah, that's it. Like, you know, I've used other products and we had carb issues and other issues, and then I switched over and they all just went away. And so you know, I'm not the smartest guy in any room pretty much, but I'm smart enough to draw the conclusion that might be working for me. And maybe I should continue working, you know, the same path I'm on. Otherwise, you know, I could always just go back to having equipment issues and downtime. And, you know, as we were saying earlier on this call, it's great to be able to know how to fix stuff and have the parts, and that's wonderful. But what's even better is not needing to, right? Like, you know, if you, you know, we always kind of share an actionable step on these, and it made me think of something that my buddy Riley says all the time out in Montana, that if you don't schedule time for maintenance, maintenance will schedule time for you. I think my buddy Mike Von Berven says that as well pretty frequently. And so I want to share that with you guys, that, you know, and I'm guilty of this myself right now. You know, there's probably a thing or two, an oil or two that needs to get changed, maybe a new air filter rather on my steel green sprayer spreader. But, you know, a little busy and it's tough, but like, it's very important that I do it. It's very important that you do this stuff, because otherwise, you know, Jeremy is asking here, like, how much do commercial mowers cost? A lot. That steel green sprayer spreader was 16 G's last summer, and I would be an idiot to not do the maintenance on it, because like simple little parts and, you know, $100 or less on air filters and oil and stuff like that, like it's going to keep that machine running forever and keep it as a cash producing asset on my balance sheet, versus I'm an idiot and I don't take care of it. It can turn into a big liability on my balance sheet and can cause me to blow out my budget in terms of monthly equipment maintenance. So, yes, I need to take my own advice here and make sure I schedule the time for that maintenance when it rains tomorrow morning. And I'm pissed I'm not out working. At least something will be getting done, and I should be doing that maintenance. And maybe if you live by Mark or Scott or Melanie in the chat said it's raining where she is too, and you're just getting soaking wet like us, you could at least get some maintenance done. And then it's a little bit better of a day. Am I right? You know, Don loves maintenance. It would always be a good day for him.
Yeah.
So it's funny, real quick, Don, when you were talking, Mark was saying, how long does it take? And you were like 20 minutes. I was like, oh, I was hoping he'd answer like, oh, it's just a 1 beer job or a 2 beer job. That's also a viable amount of time. We all would have understood what you meant.
One Molson.
If it's a 2-4, then we got problems. 2-4 jobs are not good. I did say a couple swear words when I did that transmission swap the other day, but you can get it done pretty quick.
Yeah, well, and the more you do it, the easier it gets, right?
I think, yeah, no, the carb clean thing, obviously, like so many engines as well are the same. Like you'll see the same Briggs engine on, you know, 5 or 6 different mowers, right? There's certain ones that I know when they come in, I know exactly what sockets I need to pull it out of and how long it's going to take me. And it's in and out in, you know, 25 minutes kind of thing. A lot of the time you'll hear someone being like, oh, it's fixed already. And it's like, yeah, and here's the pictures of how bad it looked. And here's the pictures of how clean the carb looks now kind of thing. But
It's amazing when you know what you're doing. It's not that hard, but it also kind of speaks to it's a societal issue that we all have to acknowledge that a couple hundred years ago, or 100 years ago, or even 50 years ago, people were much more self-sufficient, and there wasn't these websites and YouTubes, and you had to learn how to fix your own stuff, and it was hard to get parts, and that's part of maybe why I'm a little OCD about all this stuff. Is I'm the first generation not to grow up on a farm in my family, but a lot of the maintenance ideals about a lot of things in life come from the fact that my father grew up on a farm, and his father grew up on a farm, and his father grew up on a farm. And I could probably keep going with that for like another minute. And so, like greasing bolts on mowers before you put them back in and stuff like that, just like little things that, changing the oil filter, make sure you grease the gasket with oil before you screw it back on. All these little things like add a little bit here or there. And some people think are just like urban myths, but they're really urban legends from the farmers that had to make do with what they had for a long time. 100 years ago, there was the Depression, right? We weren't so lucky, and people had to make do in tough circumstances. And that's why, we get to have what we have today, but, maybe we should honor that legacy a little bit, and I'll do a little bit more maintenance on our equipment, or just give it all to Don. He's more than willing. That's also Well, thank you so much for joining us, to everyone in the chat. See, we'll end with this last one. Are new mowers expensive? I actually kind of like that because that's like a touch point question. So I'll end with that one. Don, are new mowers expensive?
Yes. I have not bought a new mower in probably 4 years. I've just bought used ones that, were half the price by the time I bought them, that were still in excellent condition and maybe just needed not even a little love, but new mowers are expensive. You do not want to have to buy a new mower, which is why you should do your equipment maintenance at the end of the day.
I like that answer. Scott, are new mowers expensive?
Yes, I would say this year we bought brand new sit down zero turn, which was 12 grand, and we bought a used one, which was only 1,500. And we put probably about 2 grand into the used one, but both of them work really good. And new mowers are expensive, and they just keep getting more and more expensive every year. So
yeah, we keep paying the price, so why would they not, right?
Yeah.
Typically how supply and demand work. Once there's supply and no demand, everyone goes, oh.
Yep.
I was noticing, I always get sticker shock when like going to GIE or to Equip and seeing the price of the mowers. But what's been something new the last couple of years, seeing some like remote control ones, or seeing some like automated, autonomous GPS, and it just blows my mind. And even battery powered ones, just the cost. Lawn care is going to get really expensive if people start going to that.
I agree.
Oh, yeah.
I agree. So
there's some big.
what was that?
Oh, was somebody else saying something? I was done with my thought.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, no, I was going to say my thought on are mowers expensive is ultimately, I would say that is a numbers question, that it's time to get out your Excel spreadsheet and do a little number crunching, because that's a very subjective question. Are new mowers expensive? Are used mowers expensive? What is your definition of expensive, right? A lot of variables there. But I would do a cost analysis on it, kind of like Scott just mentioned. He's kind of done in real time here, where he knows he spent 15 G's on a new mower, and he spent 1,500 on the other one, plus the 2 G's. But so he's 15 G's versus 3,500, right? But now he gets to see what can they produce? What's the cost to use these? What's the cost of upkeep? And, where does those lines cross? Is there downtime with one machine versus the others? And it could be the inverse. A lot of people would logically think, oh, yeah, the older mower, more downtime, but not so much. I was just talking with a contractor today that had 2 mowers that he bought this year with less than 150 hours that needed hydraulic replacements under warranty. But still, is going to be without the mower about a week each for that warranty hydraulic replacement. And so, sometimes you got to let the numbers do the talking on there. And then the last part I'll say that a lot of people don't take into account, but we did do a great episode over on IGTV about a month or so back that you might enjoy. It's talking about taxes. And a lot of people don't factor that into the equation. And if this is a business decision, there will be some tax consequences for that purchase and how you decide to depreciate that asset. And that can often weigh into whether that is a good decision. And that depreciation and when you're taking it and what value that holds against your taxable income, I'd say would be equal in determining whether I thought a mower would be expensive as the actual cost and the cost of upkeep and the projected output of the asset. So to give you some insight in how I think about purchasing assets, that's what I do on a daily basis at Bedell Property Management. So hopefully that was helpful. Everyday Lawn Care says, can someone give some info if Echo will ever make a pruning saw? I think they make a bunch of pruning saws. I own a few of them, and they're amazing. They have battery-powered saws, and they have pole saws, and they have a whole host of chainsaws. You can search the Echo Means Business YouTube channel here and see a great comparison video I did. I think it was the CS620P against some steel chainsaw that wasn't quite as good. It was also pretty good, but just not quite as good because, as you know, I'm a picky guy. And there was just a few things that I liked component-wise, like the metal teeth versus the plastic teeth is a great example on, why I chose the Echo over the steel. But you should go ahead and watch the video and comment. Let me know what you think. Know a lot of people have, and I love those comments. They're great. It's what keeps us all going, right? So, and Jeremy says, is Echo going to make a manual pole saw? I don't know. Maybe they should. Maybe they'll be coming out with some new products in a couple of months. Probably isn't part of it. Maybe it is. Maybe it'll be next year. Who knows? But I'm sure someone watching this video will go, we should. Maybe they have. Maybe I've just done it. Someone should comment and let us know. Do you guys know? I don't.
They do come in handy. I've owned a couple different ones over the years, and just something you can easily throw on your trailer and don't have to start it up. You just put the manual work in.
I like that. A nice black and orange one. I like this. Yeah. So there you go. This is a great suggestion from Jeremy that you may have in your trailer as soon as this next year, God willing. So perfect. Well, awesome. Thank you so much to the 3 of you for joining us. Thank you so much to everybody in the chat. We so appreciate hanging out with you on a Monday night. And thanks so much for joining us here on Echo Means Business YouTube Live on our new location. I think we'll be back in a few weeks or so with some fun, some more fun guests and some more fun topics. I think we went much better tonight using StreamYard, using YouTube. We didn't lose any guests, no technical difficulties. So I would call this a win for the lawn care community. So thanks so much to everybody. Anything you guys got to add?
No, thanks for doing this, Mike. Thanks, guys.
Perfect.
Yeah,
well,
thanks.
thank you
It's
so
been fun.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, and stay tuned. We got a lot coming over at Echo Means Business over the next month, so we look forward to connecting with all of you. And as always, stay safe and be good to each other. We'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.
See you guys.
See you, everyone.